El-Melloi, the second case files, Rail Zeppelin Grey Stone Collection Review. If you look at the long title for this anime and thought this must be based upon a light novel, then you will be correct. Well and halfway there, El-Melloi, the second case files is a light novel spin-off from another light novel, which is a prequel to a video game. Which video game? Fate Stay Night? Yes. We're divided back into the Fate franchise again, despite it not having the Fate name within the title. To make it clear to Fate fans, this series is a spin-off from Fate Zero, and also takes place several months before Fate Stay Night, a limited Blade Works, Heaven's Field, the whole thing. On top of all this, the anime also has cameos for other Fate properties including Apocrypha and Grand Order. However, in order to follow the show, you just need to know what happened on Fate Zero and Fate Stay Night, saying that Fate stories come with a lot of expectations, namely the Holy Grail War, the Servant and Master Dynamics, and the fascinating magical world it all takes place in. El-Melloi the second case files is missing two of these major ingredients, namely the war itself, and there's no Servant Master pairings here. What I mentioned, however, this series isn't focused on that, which would likely turn on Fate fans who just want to see the cool fights and Servant reveals. But saying all that, is the series still worth discovering, despite the large hurdle of watching material needed to understand the background, or is it a mystery being left unsolved? The Fourth Holy Grail War claimed many lives, but one of those was not Warrior Velvet, a young man who stole the relic from his teacher in order to participate. He survived but not without battle scars of his own, including guilt for indirectly being responsible for Canon El-Melloi Archibald's death. When Waver is dragged back to the clock tower by El-Mellioi's niece, Reigns. He agrees to take responsibility, including taking on the family debt, restoring the family name, solving mysteries that affect the mage community, and somehow along the way, living into the promise he made the writer all those years ago. Detective fiction, a subgenre of the mystery genre, has been around since the 19th century, with its most famous examples being Sherlock Holmes and Agatha Christie books, and almost always has the strict format with three questions that must be answered. What happened? Who done it? And why did they do it? The most famous and beloved stories with this genre usually have the clues leading up to the answer to each question, so that when the audience finds out the solutions, they can think of course. It was all laid out from the beginning in plain sight. However, this isn't always the case if a writer feels inclined to withhold information from the audience, or the story takes place in a world where it will be impossible to know all the answers, like a sci-fi or fantasy world. Then the detective mystery becomes less about finding the clues, and more about the journey of how our protagonist discovers and faces off against the culprit. Whilst this format runs the risk of turning off audiences who like participating in the mystery, it can also allow for more subgenres to tap into the detective genre without having to rely on the old tropes. This is where El-Melloi II's case files comes in. Weaver, now known as El-Melloi II, plays a detective in the story, with Gray, his apprentice, playing the Watson role in that she asks questions about the case and the world to help the audience follow what's going on. However, because the world of Fate is so dense and complicated, it's practically impossible to follow everything the characters are saying half the time, unless you just digested everything about the Fate lore, not just anything animated, and have a really good memory. You like find yourself tuning out halfway during the exposition dumps when building up to the finales of each case. That's not to say that it's completely boring. Fate is a lot of things, but boring isn't one of them. The world is so interesting for the different families who specialize in different types of magecraft to the visually stunning and varied kinds of magic performed. The show is very upfront with how it's impossible to try and improve someone's alibi because a mage can simply control someone from afar, or apply magical traps in advance, etc. El-Mellioi's job is mostly focused on the why done it portion of the story, with the character started shown in for good measure. But in my point of view, El-Melloi II's case files is not really a magical version of Sherlock Holmes. The show is closer to Type Moon's other property, The Garden of Sinners, and another London-based supernatural show, Black Butler. The former is also a supernatural mystery with half the pieces missing, but the real drive is the emotional journey of a heroine who's finding her place in the dark, unforgiving world while scaring a lot of darkness within herself. The lead has a longer, ongoing murder mystery, but the day-to-day is solving smaller cases and comical antics of the characters who inhabit a larger supernatural world. El-Melloi II's case file sits comfortably in the middle of both. There's a large cast of characters that El-Melloi II either interacts with or fight against, with a measure of comedy thrown into the mix. And Weaver's emotional struggle between his desires to see Ryder again and his duty to his role as Lord is interesting to watch unfold. The cast also contains a wide range of high-rank mages and students that are brought into each mystery, and the characters borrow from Grand Order and Apocrypha. are actually in the world new timeline, so to see them in new worlds and how their lives turned out here will bring joy to any long-term Fate fan. The weakest link, however, lies with Gray. El-Melloi is like an apprentice. There are elements of her character, the cool side and the fact it's alive, the Green Reaper inspired design, etc. An interesting but interesting personality, why she's outclassed by everyone else in her eventual backstory reveal is disappointing and dull. I said I can't really explain why for spoiler reasons. I did look up the production company behind this series before playing the first batch of episodes, so I was very surprised to discover that the studio was not football, but in fact, Troika, best known for Alhonda's Hero Blooming to You, the series is beautifully animated for the visual mesmerizing opening to the matching heavy battles that come to life on screen. It was also so impressed that, considering that the series had the useful pupil scenes and character models for other Fate shows, from Zero to Apocrypha, all of which were animated by different studios, and yet not only keep them recognizable for the respective series but also work within their own piece of work. It's staggering. I can imagine it must have been a nightmare to organize, but Troika did a splendid job. I also appreciate the amount of details they have gone into bringing London to life. Not just the landmarks, such as the Big Ben and House of Parliament, but also the little things like car license plates and adding double red lines to roads. Yuki Kajiura provides the score here, and like the anime, she also incorporates themes and pieces from the previous Fate works she composed before, but also keeps the show's unique detective flair. And there, the opening theme starting the case, Rail Zeppelin, for example, goes against the typical J-pop number. It is fully instrumental composition, supposed to intrigue, mystery, tension, which is perfect for this type of show. She also composed the ending theme, Hibari by Asuka. If you happen to be a fan of Yuki Kajiura's former group, Calafina, I recommend checking out this song, as it sounds very much like a Calafina track. The English dub has a lot of returning voice actors, including Lucian Dodge as Waver El-Melloi, or effortlessly does both younger and older male voices. However, I am disappointed that the whole series is set in England, with a large cast of English characters, and yet the only one speaking with an English accent is a character from Finland. However, this is a continuation from Fate Zero, but also none of the characters sounded like where they came from, so at least it's consistent with its own dubbing. The Blu-ray collection contains all 13 episodes of the series, including episode 0, which aired in the Fate Project New Year's TV special 6 months before the series began. There's also Texas opening and ending, PV collections, and web reviews. Despite framing itself as a detective mystery, the series is not a good example of that, due to the lack of giving the audience the tools to figure out the mystery, combined with heavy dialogue scenes about the lore, which would be aggravating from some. El-Melloi II's case files, Rail Zeppelin Grace Note is best enjoyed if you're a Fate fan, first and foremost, but it's a thirst to see more of the world outside of the Holy Grail War. 9/10.